for a country like India, which was risk averse for a very long time, we were capital averse. We did not want to invest a lot in science and technology, which was not giving back immediate returns. Today, we are in a position where we are not in hurry. We are okay if the returns come maybe a decade or two later. And when we reach that mental stage, as a collective mental stage as a country, that is when we said that, okay, let's do Gaganyaan.
For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
You're watching StratNews Global. I'm Ketki Angre, and this is The Gist. After a gap of 41 years, India has sent another man into space, and this time it is Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla. There's so much of euphoria we saw. It took so many days for the mission to actually take off, but now we have another man in space. And this is a big day and a big moment for India. And to talk us through why this is so important, we're joined by Dr. Chaitanya Giri, Space Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Thank you so much, Dr. Giri, for joining us. I want to
Thank you.
start
My
by
pleasure.
asking that what is the advantage of sending a human into space, especially for India?
As you rightly said, we have done this before, 41 years ago, and it was as important back then as it is important today. Why do we go out in space? Number one, the destiny of humanity is out there in outer space. So we will have to know how to acclimatize to the harsh environments of space. We'll need to know how do we build habitats in space. How would we exploit or extract resources from outer space for our survival there, and to come to know and to come to comprehend how important it is to be here on planet Earth. So these are the philosophical reasons. Now coming to the political reasons, yes, every space power today wants to graduate to a level where it could carry out human space flight. Uh, it started with the Soviet Union and the United States, and they were very early to graduate from just being satellite carriers or spacecraft carriers to becoming full-fledged uh, human carriers into outer space, starting with low Earth orbit missions, and then eventually trying to attempt taking humans to the moon. Now, all this requires, or all this asks for, a lot of tech development. A tech development that you wouldn't carry out uh, without having set a very humongous pursuit as that of carrying humans in space. What is that? It means that you would build some of the biggest rockets. You would build some of the most complicated spacecrafts, uh, uh, which would be human rated, which would be able to carry and sustain humans for a certain period of time. And all these technologies complement with a variety of other technologies that we use here on Earth. So maybe an oxygen generator for a space capsule is very much similar to what you would build in a submarine. And if there are any kind of forays that you are going to make in that particular technology, you may not only uh, kind of augment uh, the space capsule, but you would also end up augmenting the technology that goes into, let's say, submarines or deep submergence vehicles. So at this juncture in India's history, uh, we are not only sending humans to the International Space Station, which may not be entirely our mission, but we are definitely building something for our own. There's a Bharatiya Antariksh Station coming up in the next decade. You would have the first of the human space flights, which is called as the Gaganyaan mission, to happen in the very near future, in the next five to 6 years. And uh, eventually, You would also build something known as the Samudrayan, which is a similar capsule which would take humans to the depths of the ocean, some below 6,000 or 8,000 meters. All these technologies where you put a human in a shell, take them into outer space, take them to the depths of the ocean, are necessary to test the limits of technology. For instance, with Samudrayan, which is not the talk of the town right now, but it will soon be. You're building a titanium hull. You're building a titanium shell, and in that titanium shell, you're wanting to have three humans go to the depths of the ocean under tremendous pressure as you descend into the waters. Now, that kind of technology you won't build until you aim big, and India has started to aim big. And this particular mission, where Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla has been taken to the ISS, is a precursor, is a progenitor of what Indian astronauts would do uh, when they build their own space station. And since there is already a space station hung up there in the low Earth orbit in the form of ISS, we thought, why not test our potential, do some dry runs with the ISS till it's up there, because ISS also may be retired in the next few years. So, well before it retires, let's have an astronaut there and bring a lot of learnings from these few days where Subhanshu Shukla is up there. And these learnings would then be transferred onto our Gaganyaan and subsequently on how Bharatiya Antariksh Station would come to be.
So you spoke of the Gaganyaan, and that's exactly what everyone is really focused on, after this mission. And talk us through how, it's one thing to do it in a simulator, and we have had training in simulators in Russia, even trained with NASA. But it's quite something to actually be in space, and how that will help with India's Gaganyaan mission as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a doer's world. So those who execute it, those who bring all these technologies together, uh, make these technologies work in unison. The world belongs to them, and India wants to be there. And that's why when Gaganyaan was announced in 2018, uh, we already back then in 2018 had all the precursors of human space flight. uh, you had a GSLV Mark III, which is right now known as the LVM-3. It had all the potential to be termed as human rated, a rocket that can carry humans. So we had that. We had done space capsule re-entry experiments. Uh, the first one was done in 2007, if I correctly remember. And thereafter, there was another experiment done just prior to the Gaganyaan announcement. So India always had the basic building blocks. It was just that we didn't have the political will to announce that we would send humans into outer space. And sending humans into outer space always happens in two stages. First, you conquer or you kind of gain experience in the low Earth orbit, which is the closest uh, orbital slot where you can send humans to and retrieve them back easily. And thereafter, you have uh, uh, other places, and the next you know most sought after place is the moon. There are other zones which are closer to the moon, but nobody has attempted that yet. There are Lagrange points. There are concepts where there is a zone between Earth and the moon where the gravities of both the bodies get cancelled, and whatever you keep in such zones, in such points, the spacecraft or the space station will get locked there, positioned there. It won't move at all. So you have those kind of positions available where you can send humans, but nobody has attempted that. So since there is a lot of experience in the world of taking humans to the moon, and since there is a lot of even greater experience of having human presence in low Earth orbit, that's what we are aiming for. We have learned from the Russians in all these years, all these 6 7 years. We've learned from the Americans. The French have accorded us with know-how of space medicine, and with all these learnings, we are now attempting to have our Indians go out in outer space entirely on their own. So designing of a spacecraft, designing of human-rated astronautical avionics, which are fly-by-wire, ensuring that there is food available, ensuring there is life support system, ensuring there is hygiene systems in place. Hygiene systems are again part of life support. Those are in place. All this takes more than space science. It takes your astronauts come from the forces, armed forces. It takes a lot of biologists, people in gravitational biology, space biology, people in radiation biology, cancer specialists. Uh, it takes a whole village to ensure that two or three of your astronauts go somewhere, uh, even as close as the low Earth orbit, which is just 120 kilometers from where we are. Uh, it's not even the distance uh, as far as you and me are right now. You are 1300 kilometers away from me, but astronauts would be just 100 kilometers on top of us. But that too is a big thing. And for a country like India, which was risk averse for a very long time, we were capital averse. We did not want to invest a lot in science and technology, which was not giving back immediate returns. Today, we are in a position where we are not in hurry. We are okay if the returns come maybe a decade or two later. And when we reach that mental stage, as a collective mental stage as a country, that is when we said that, okay, let's do Gaganyaan. So
Your
2018,
answer,
yeah, so
Your answer
2018
actually is
actually,
a great, sorry, your answer is actually a great segue for my next question, which
okay.
is, Axiom 4 mission, the cost is in the range of, say, 60 to $65 million. And, when you say that we were risk averse, we were not willing to put in this kind of investment earlier, there are naturally some who are asking that what is the kind of returns in terms of technical and strategic returns for India, given that we're making this heavy investment?
So the cost of the ticket that we paid for is massive. Okay. And if you talk to anybody who's worked on the Indian space program for the past, what, 3, 4, 5 decades, the senior people there up there, they would have uh, they would have butterflies in their stomach if they see that particular value. But if you ask to somebody even younger than me, maybe those who are in their late 20s, early 20s, they would see that okay, well, 100 $150 million is nothing much, because mentally I'm in a zone, or we are in a zone, where we have a lot of comparisons. Firstly, we are spending a lot on infrastructure, we are spending a lot on education, we are spending a lot on cricket teams, we are spending a lot on you know travel, tourism, and all those leisure activities. You're building huge resorts in the country. Uh, you're doing a lot. And the ticket size of those investments easily run into a few hundreds of $1 million or even $1 billion scale. Uh, in the next few years, let's say by 2036, India is also bidding for the Olympics. So, so this generation is not averse to spending money. And as I told you, we are getting a lot of experiential learning, which is utmost necessary before we get uh, going with our space station, with our Gaganyaan. Because it would be unwise of us as a country and as a self assured country to have not availed the services that are available right now. The ISS is available right now. All the countries that are party to the ISS, all the six players, Europe, Japan, Russia, United States, uh, they all are in some way or the other our allies. Many of them are our strategic partners, and we've benefited from them. So at this point, we benefited from the Russians, who do not go well along with the Americans elsewhere. But when it comes to ISS, the partnership is headstrong. Okay. The French and the Russians also, they might be fighting a war in Ukraine. They might have their differences, but it is the ISS where the partnership still is really, great going. So space or human space flight has been envisioned a long time ago as a mechanism of detente. Even right now, it is a mechanism which is sort of taking off a lot of pressure from geopolitical pressure that exists between the countries. And since we are friends with many of them, we've leveraged these services that are available. They may be at a cost, but that experience will take us really far. Why I say so? Because let's say around 2047, at the fag end of the Amrit Kal that we've defined the period as, you would have maybe two American commercial space stations up there. The Chinese space station would be up and running, the one that is above us right now. And the third space station, which is on the anvil, is ours. There's nobody else. So, keeping that in mind, the world's top three economies, if they remain so in 2047, would have their respective space stations up there in the orbit. And when we have our space station, we'll have to invite countries from the global south. We will do that. We will bring them on board. So there will be diplomacy post space station, and there will be space diplomacy pre space station. What I see as this particular axiom mission is the space diplomacy pre Bharatiya Antariksh Station in the early years.
Correct. Now, just like what we are seeing with a commercial space mission like Axiom, or we've seen with SpaceX, given that we have set our sights on a homegrown station, what can ISRO sort of learn with these synergies that are happening with private players, and how can that also help with where we are looking to go?
So there is a lot to learn, a lot to emulate, and there's a lot which we can't emulate at all. We'll have to come up with our own mechanisms, with our own sort of synergies, uh, and so on and so forth. What I believe is, let us take out from our minds that there will be a SpaceX in India, because there's always a case, right? People ask a lot that, okay, who's next India's Elon Musk? No, there can't be an India's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a purely American phenomenon. You can't have somebody like that here in India. But does that mean that there is no effort towards privatization? Yes, there is enough effort towards privatization. Many of our private space companies are hardly 10 years old. And if you look at the scales, the time scales in which human spaceflight is achieved, say by 2040s, 2047, when you would eventually have the space station up there, many of these Indian space companies would have matured. All these, their technologies would have matured. They would have contributed with some system, subsystem, component, subcomponent, uh, while building the space station or while operating the space station. So there would be a space segment of it, there would be a ground segment of it. All of them will be contributing to it. So as I said, just the way it takes a whole village there in my earlier answer, again over here it takes a whole village. It would take the whole ecosystem to ensure that human spaceflight uh, component of the Indian space program is a big success. Just recently, you had the small satellite launch vehicle being caught with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited winning the bid for constructing it commercially. Uh, Similarly, your Polar satellite launch vehicle uh, would get uh, privately built. And thereafter, there is something known as the next generation vehicle, the NGV. So the next generation launch vehicle would also be used for taking our Indian astronauts from Earth to space. And then you would have the LVM-3, which is the proven one right now, which is now getting prepared for the Gaganyaan mission. that too would eventually get privatized, privately built. And it's not the case that there's no private sector contribution today. Many of the components that go into a LVM3, PSLV, SSLV are built by the private sector. The whole of government or a whole of industry or a whole of ecosystem approach that is beginning to develop here in the country. And it is just a matter of time where some of these missions that we have been planning for very long are realized, and we see their spectacular launches with our own eyes, and we celebrate them. So it's going to happen very soon.
Yeah, like we got a chance to do in August 2023. In fact,
Yes.
that brings me to my last question. There are 7 experiments that ISRO has sort of planned for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla. Now he's conducting experiments on muscle atrophy, microbial adaptation, and there are more. Now, are these only to help in the field of, say, medicine strictly, or is it also something that will play any role in our future space missions?
See, from what I know, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla was also trained or is also getting trained at the Indian Institute of Sciences. And his colleagues or mentors at the ISC, the professors at ISC, have contributed with certain experiments. And a few of our Indian research institutions across the country have contributed with these experiments. He's worked with them in the laboratory at ISC, and he is going to replicate those experiments in space under the microgravity conditions or the radiation conditions. Now, this is not it. We must look at the fact that when you have a space station up there, it will be carrying out several kinds of experiments. Uh, from what I can tell you, there are pharma companies in India who are very much interested in contractual research. So they would want some of their pharmaceutical experiments to be done in microgravity conditions in space. Where would they go? They'll of course come to the Bharatiya Antariksh Station. There, then there are kind of advanced materials companies who would want to synthesize their materials again in space conditions, which is not possible here on ground under microgravity or under certain radiation duress. They would want to use the space station for their experiments. So even if the Bharatiya Antariksh Station is not being touted as a commercial station, it will still carry out a lot of commercial R&D activities when it is up there. And this is the first class of astronauts. Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, Angar Pratap, Group Captain Nair, and the others. Subsequent classes of astronauts will have to be trained in these sciences. So they won't just be uh, uh, your armed forces officers, but they would be very much trained in carrying out certain basic sciences. And eventually, there are positions. If you look at the ISS mission in the past, or Skylab missions of the Americans, or the Mir and Salyut space stations that the Russians had, they've always had teams constituting of pilots, commander of the missions, as well as certain science specialists. Kalpana Chawla was a science specialist. Our, uh, our, uh, our Sunita Williams was a science specialist, to be precise. She's also done a few experiments. So the day-to-day job up there is not to do anything but just to experiment, just to keep looking at experiments that are coming from various labs. I'll also give you an example. The Chinese space station right now is utilizing the services of United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. They've come up with a program known as together. They've come up with a program known as Access to Space for All. And as part of this program, the Chinese space station operators are inviting experiments from all over the world to be taken to their space station for experimentation. I remember in one of the calls, two of our Indian institutions also contributed with certain experiments. Same is the case when we have our own. You would invite experiments from the global south, and all these experiments will not only enhance our understanding of sciences, but these experiments will also be commercially motivated because that is how you would pay for the payload, right? So the future is bright. We've taken the most appropriate step by getting Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla learn from it, and the subsequent classes will benefit immensely.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. This is the gist, and you're watching Strat News Global. Make sure you like our videos, share them, and also hit the bell icon so you never miss another update from Strat News Global.